Good morning. This is Kenton for DreamsCloud. Today we're fortunate to have in our virtual studio with us Andrew Paquette. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Kenton.
Um, Andrew's work is summarized, I guess, to a degree in one of his books called Dreamer, 20 Years of Psychic Dreams and How They Changed My Life. Uh, Andrew's work, started off with your direct experience with, your dreams, your trying to understand how they affected your life, and then you evolved over the years your way of understanding it, and that led to the book and to additional research. Can you tell us about your process, an overview of how these 20 years have taken place?
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to. Yeah, the thing is, for quite a long time, I thought that this supernatural was impossible. I considered myself to be an atheist. I definitely did not buy the idea that was anything to stories of ESP or precognition or any kind of psi that you might want to describe, let alone dreams of the future, prophecies, that kind of thing. I thought the whole subject matter had no credibility whatsoever. And then I met this young woman who, oddly enough, I recognized from a dream I'd had about a year and a half or 2 years earlier, and I naturally put that out of my mind. And I was thinking, well, this can't be real. But anyway, I wound up meeting her, and what happened was I had this habit of when I woke up in the morning, I'd tell her my dreams, and she had a habit of noticing that things that would happen a little bit later would correspond to what I told her earlier about my dreams. So she was telling me probably every few weeks, she'd say, Andrew, that dream you told me about has just happened. So you're dreaming about the future. And I have to say, I was pretty dismissive of that. I said, you're wrong. It's not that I think you're wrong. I know you're wrong. But she was pretty insistent about it, so I finally decided, fine, I'll prove that you're wrong. And I started recording my dreams. And what I found out, to my great surprise, was that I was able to validate these dreams with experiences in the physical world, I guess we could say, very quickly after I had written the dreams down. And sometimes it took a while to validate them, but more often it happened very quickly within a day or a few weeks. So I started changing my opinion about whether or not that limited type of psi was occurring, whether or not it was possible to have precognitive dreams. And actually that's all I was looking at. I wasn't thinking of any other kinds of interesting things happening with the dream. As far as I was concerned, they were either not interesting or they were precognitive. However, after a number of months, I found out that I was also dreaming about people in other locations. They're basically like visits where I would go to them and I would see what they were doing. And then I would be able to confirm that with them by calling them up later on after I wake up. I'd say, now, does this dream sound familiar to you? And they'd say, yes, that's what I was doing yesterday. So those were what I'm calling out-of-body experiences. And then by checking the dreams, actually very carefully and writing them all down, I learned not only how to report the dreams pretty well, because there are a lot of things that get in the way of reporting them accurately, but I also learned that it was very easy to validate many of them. And in fact, I had hundreds after a while that definitely had what you would call psi in them. And as a result, I found my beliefs about other things changing a great deal. I found myself much more congenial to my wife, which was very nice. I'm no longer an atheist. Of course, this is 20 years later. It took a little while for that to work out. But the first dent in that particular piece of my armor was, well, psi is basically the same thing as some of these supernatural things that we hear about that are associated with biblical events. And that was the primary basis for my not believing in God. And so I had to admit, well, I'm seeing this stuff happen in my life every day. I've got the evidence for it. It's really strong. So I'm going to have to drop my resistance to the idea of God. So initially I was willing to accept that God might exist, and then that changed to probably existed, and then I was willing to say, all right, fine, there's a God, but I wasn't willing to say he's personified in any way, not like the Abrahamic tradition in Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. And then I started dreaming about God himself, and that's what he looked like. So, so I was kind of stuck. And at that point, I would say I had completely changed my perspective from what I'd started out as. But the thing is that this perspective change happened as a result of my carefully looking at this evidence. And I'll tell you something that's not in the book that you probably enjoy is I used to play, this is a very little story, so I hope you don't mind. But when I was in art school and I was an atheist and I didn't believe in all this stuff, I had a guy who I used to play chess with, and he was this absolute slob who was doing very badly in school, etc. His house was a complete mess, and he was living with a woman he wasn't married to. And one day I went over, and everything was cleaned up, and he said, "I've got a really big surprise for you." And I said, "What is it?" And he says, I just became a Christian." And and I thought, great, I'm not going to be your friend anymore because I can't talk to a Christian. And he was like, no, 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 wait, don't leave. You'd make a terrific Christian. I'm like, you know what? If God is as powerful as you say, and he wants me to be a Christian, then he can show himself to me. He doesn't need to go through you because he's powerful, right? And he agreed with me. And I was like, fine, okay, so let him do the work. You can stay out of this. And it happened. It was, I mean, it really did. Although I would say I'm more non-denominational, but still, I completely accept God and Psi and all the rest of this. But it's based on evidence.
It's a fascinating story, at times challenging to me in reading your book. It definitely made me think. In fact, I was looking forward to today's interview because of reading your book and kind of being challenged by that and starting to look at the evidence, your writings, and I appreciate your work so much. Let's carry this interview forward in a few more, and let's talk about your concepts of validating dreams, some of the issues of external, internal focus, and I'll say goodbye for now, and we'll carry this forward. Okay?
That's fine.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye bye.